In this video, we're going to be talking about AI currency, and that is tokens. Have you ever encountered a situation when you're using AI and you get to the end of your free usage? Well, in today's video, you're going to understand that a little bit more. And not only that, if you're working with AI in terms of a more professional and work setting, you're going to become far more intelligent and informed when it comes to AI, making you a much more valuable person when it comes to that topic of conversation. Most people think when you type something into AI, it's processing your words, and that's actually not what's going on. AI breaks down your words into much smaller blocks and chunks, and we're going to talk about that in the context of understanding tokens in the rest of this video. Maybe not surprisingly, we're going to use the analogy of an arcade and tokens at an arcade in this video because I think it's quite relevant and it is quite useful. So to kick things off, let's just define what an AI token is. An AI token is actually just a measurement tool for how much the volume of work an AI model is actually doing. More specifically, a token is about 4 characters. So A, B, C, D would be the equivalent of a token. So when AI is looking at the text and the prompts that you type in and prompt into AI, it actually breaks this down into smaller chunks it can begin to understand. And usually these are about 4 characters. So one token you can think translates to, on average, about 4 characters of your text. The reason this is important is not because the specifics around the AI token are that important, but ultimately the amount of tokens that a prompt or piece of text may have is essentially telling you the amount of volume of work an AI model has to do. So when you type in a prompt, ask AI a question, you are actually giving it a volume of work. So the more words you type, the more tokens that's going to use. And if we're thinking about tokens as a currency of AI, obviously the more detailed and longer prompts are going to cost you more tokens. And when it comes to using something like ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, all the AI models out there, Gemini, they effectively are giving you a free amount of tokens to use every day. So you're in this arcade and you can walk up to any of these different machines, whether it's Claude, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Gemini, and you can start to put in your tokens. But the more you say, the more you use it, the more narrative you put into it, the more tokens it's going to take. And that's not the only thing. When we think about tokens, you have input tokens where you're typing a prompt or instruction into an AI model, but then AI has to think and return you an answer. And as you might not be surprised, the value of tokens where you get returned an answer is actually significantly more. Effectively, it's cheaper to ask a question than to be returned an answer, and that makes total sense. So on average, an output token is 5 times more costly or valuable than an input token. So just think about the next time you're interacting with AI, maybe you need to define more what the output is going to be, because it's going to use more tokens up if you leave the parameters really wide open, and then AI just kind of gives you everything and much of it you don't even need. So when it comes to the arcade analogy, we can think about the more we want to play a game, the more tokens we're going to have to put into that. And that means the longer, more complex prompts are going to cost you more tokens. And also the more complex and interesting and, let's say, high-tech the output in an arcade scenario, well, you're going to have to pay more for that output as well. If we think about this in perhaps the scenario of a Formula One game where you have an input, and maybe it's just a joystick, and that's going to be a far more simpler game than a game where you jump into a simulator and all the inputs are the gas pedal, the accelerator, the steering wheel, all the rest of it. So the second latter one is going to take more tokens, right? It's a better game. It's going to cost you more tokens. Not only that, you may have a really simple video production when it comes to the joystick model. So you just get like really simple feedback in terms of the Formula One race and it's really old graphics. Well, that's going to be cheaper and also require less tokens. But let's say you want the ultimate experience. You want the simulator. You want lots of input, but you want this immersive experience in an F1 simulator with the latest graphics that make you feel like you're actually out there living F1 in the moment. Well, that's going to be more expensive too, and also require significantly more tokens. And that's the way you can begin to think about your interactions with AI. The other thing to note here is that different games are going to cost you different things because they're built for different purposes. And when it comes to AI, the application of this effectively is saying something like a top-end model that's really intelligent, like Opus, is perhaps going to cost you more in terms of the price of these tokens. But when you use something a little bit more simplistic, I believe it's Haiku, where it's more volume based and it's not as intelligent as Opus, well, the price of these tokens is going to be less. And again, that's going to affect your money and how much you're paying for all of these things. And ultimately, you may have experienced it. On some days, you may have asked AI a number of really simple questions, and that conversation just carried on for a really long time. And you actually didn't end up reaching the end of your free quota for the day. But perhaps on other occasions, you've asked AI to create an image, or you've asked it a really complicated prompt, and you've ended up getting to the end of your free usage for the day and wondered why that didn't happen the day previous when you asked it a lot more simple questions. Well, the reason why is because you used a lot more tokens with your more complex requirements and requests from AI. And as a result of that, you just got to the end of your usage a lot sooner. So just to summarize here, before we move on, an AI token is just a simple measurement of volume, the number of characters in your words. And ultimately, it's around 4 characters or 0.75 words. The reason this is important is because AI tokens are a volume metric, and depending on the number of tokens you're using, you're going to get to the end of a quota or use up your usage a lot sooner if you're using more volume when it comes to your tokens. Also, token pricing is actually different depending on the different models or different games you're playing in the arcade or AI models you're using. That's something to take into account too. When it comes to AI, maybe you're person 1 or 2. Person 1 I consider as someone, just an everyday user, jumps in and uses ChatGPT, Claude for everyday things. Well, now with the understanding of what an AI token is, you may decide to switch between different models so you don't overuse your usage when you are asking ChatGPT and these AI models really simple things. So you don't pick the most expensive, most complex model. Maybe you just use a more simple one. The other thing is you may think about putting in a shorter prompt. I think it's really efficient, and I'm going to create another video on effective prompting. So please subscribe and follow along, and you will find that video in the future. You also may think about how efficient your prompts are. A good prompt is more valuable than a really short prompt that doesn't really give AI enough information to deliver what you want. But at the same time, maybe you will shorten your prompts. Maybe you won't put or data dump too much information into your prompt and make it way more concise, because that's going to save you tokens. The other thing you may do is actually jump into different models. Perhaps your model of choice is Claude and you really like the output, or maybe it's Gemini because it gives you the images you want and it's really sophisticated. Well, perhaps you will jump into Claude and use up more of your free access to tokens in there. Ask it more questions, maybe ask it to design a prompt for Gemini, and maybe later you will jump into Gemini with a much better prompt already, and you've navigated these different AI models and your different free quotas with them to get to the end result that you want. The other thing you might think about doing just to save tokens is to start a new conversation, because there's a bit of an invisible volume of work being done when you're in the same conversation asking AI questions. It sometimes will try to memorize what you've asked it before. It may run through loops of notes it's taken and summarizing what you've already asked it in that conversation. And if you ask it something that's completely not to do with that, or maybe you don't need it to remember the context of what you told it earlier in the context window, then starting a new conversation will save you tokens, because AI is not going to be going into that, reading it and seeing if it applies to the new question you've just asked it. Perhaps you're person 1, or perhaps you're person 1 and person number 2, and you're using AI more professionally in a work context. Well, now you know that efficiency matters, and it's not just a case of using AI. AI comes with a cost. And if you're using it professionally, you're going to be stepping away very quickly from the free options and having to pay for the amount of tokens you use. So of course, now you may begin to think about which models are most appropriate when you need deep learning or deep understanding. Maybe you will use the most powerful models, but maybe when it's more volume based, you're just processing transactions, you don't need that much intelligence. Maybe you're going to jump down to a lower end model that's good for those things and actually costs less per token. Maybe you'll consider if you even need AI. There's some things that you can just automate with programming language, and you don't need an intelligent piece of software to be involved, and you ultimately will cut out the cost completely. Ultimately, you're going to start thinking about data flows. How much data is going in? How much data is coming out? The quality of the stuff going in, the quality of the stuff coming out. You may begin to think about invisible flows as well, where in the case where an AI model may jump into its memory, even though you asked it a question, it may try to remember what you like, your personal preferences, etc. And it's processing all this in the background as part of the language as well. So maybe you may think about that when making and designing a model or working with people that are designing your models and ask more intelligent questions. Ultimately, I think by understanding this really simplistic thing of an AI token, and I really hope you've got to the end of this video, because it's going to make you a much more powerful individual going forward in this AI-driven world. And just for context, I was not a first adopter of AI. I am only using AI for about 2 months and investigating it, and I don't even use it that much at the moment. But ultimately, it does feel like it's something we need to catch up on, and I'm going to be educating myself and moving forward with it in terms of my daily life and my business to see where it needs to be used and where it does not need to be used. If you want to follow along this journey, then please subscribe. You're going to hear more from me. I've created another video, a really short video, because people tend to over-analyze what a prompt or what a good prompt is. But it is useful to know how to prompt AI without spending hours on it. So there's a video for that if you want to go and check it out. I'm also going to do a short video on how I try to, at the moment, maximize my free use of all the different AI models. And I briefly touched on it in this video. So if you want to hear more about that, go check out that video as well. I hope this video on AI tokens has been really useful, and just simply by asking an intelligent question and being curious on this really minor aspect of AI has opened up such a big view of how you interact with AI and made you a far more powerful and intelligent and informed person. I hope you can see that. I hope it makes you more curious and you continue to ask more questions. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.